when we're very young, we all believe in a lot of things, including magic. Hi, I'm Professor Margaret Rogers Van Coops, and welcome to Journey into an Unknown World. When I chose this title many years ago for the show, my understanding of most people was that they really didn't know much about the metaphysical things that were going on at that time. And here we are, 20 years later, and people are now quite well informed about alternative medicine, the various therapies that are available, and all hope in some way that they will aspire to improve their lifestyles and make things happier. But, you know, one of the things that I'm so concerned about is that we've lost the understanding of the power of self and the magic of life. So let's go back in time. Let's go back to when you're a tiny little girl, oh boy, and mommy and daddy standing in front of you and they're saying, oh, Santa is coming down the chimney. Father Christmas is going to come and bring you presents. No matter what country you're in, everyone believes in Christmas in some way. Now, if it's not Christmas, it might be a Muslim faith, or it might be a Jewish faith and Buddhist faith, and it goes on. There's many, many faiths. But everyone has this belief that somewhere in time there is a spiritual entity that's going to come. And if the children have been really good, they're going to get some wonderful presents. And of course, when the child is wide-eyed, wow, I'm going to get some presents, and you know, I'm really going to try to be really, really good, and I'm going to write my list out, and I fully expect I'm going to get everything that's on it. And of course, parents wanting to make Christmas or whatever holiday it is the best that they can provide for that child relative to how much money they've got. So obviously, if a child asks for a bike and there's only $3 in the pocket, it's not going to happen. So when we try and compensate by, say, giving a child a movie instead about these kids who are riding bikes, it might sound a really good swap over and a diversion. But hey, it's just giving them more ideas about, I want to have a bike. And I did see that in my children when they were young, obviously. You know, 4 children and 4 lots of presents and oodles of stuff to buy. I guess I just had to go to the equivalent in those days of Toys R Us, where you could buy a whole bunch of things for a couple of pounds in England, to $4 or $5 in America, and fill up the stocking, or as we had in England, a pillowcase, with all sorts of cheaper presents that they can rip off the coverings and, ooh, look what I've got, and their eyes are popping out of their head. And it's a wonderful moment, and everybody's happy, especially if they've got the big present that they really asked for. And of course, parents try and provide that. But what's behind that? This is what I want to say, is this. We are setting up our children by philosophy, theology, religions, and so on, in some way to believe that the power of magic lies in the hands of God and lies in the hands of how much parents say to God, oh, my son or daughter has been good, and therefore they are going to get something. Now, obviously, if a child expects a lot, and mum hasn't got a lot, and dad hasn't got much money either, so we get a smaller sack, less things than they expect, it's a disappointment, because, hey, isn't Santa or whoever it is that's bringing the presents supposed to not be worrying about money, not even thinking about the cost of anything? And why should a child who's so young and full of expectations of lots of things they've asked for only to be disappointed because the things they got are not what they wanted? So here I want to say, whether we know it or not, our children are making up their own mind about whether they believe in A, magic, B, in the power of God or whatever the entity is that they believe in to bring them the things they want, and C, trusting in their parents, that their parents are actually telling God or the spirit or the fairy, whatever it is, in some way, my child's been good. So if they're disappointed, they feel let down. And this is such an early age, and parents don't realize that the primary emotion of, ooh, I'm getting presents, to, ooh, that's nice, what is it? I don't know what to do with it. Thank you, put it on the side, open up another present thinking, okay, this is something that's going to be what I want, only to find yet again it's not. Disappointment. Of course, then in those days when our kids were young, we used to say, well, Granny and Grandpa sent their present to Santa. You know, that would help bulk up the presents, wouldn't it? And also it would give them an opportunity to realize that they bothered, and they were therefore going to write a thank you note to Granny and Grandpa afterwards saying, I love what I got. And we made that happen. Today I'm very disappointed here, I have to admit it, because most of the children do not get encouraged to write thank you notes. They just go on their little phone and write thanks. No, I love it, or this is, or I played with it for 4 hours, or whatever it was that we used to have to write in our thank you letters. It was a point of communication. So what do we believe about magic now? I know when I was a young child, there was absolutely no doubt in my being that there was a Santa, and that when my parents told me, by the time my sister was about 2.5, so that would have made me 7, that Santa was really Mummy and Daddy. And I remember looking at them and kind of knowing and kind of guessing and kind of saying, because I wanted 3 ways to be grown up in my acceptance of what they were saying, because they'd already set me up in their way by saying, now you're a big girl, we're going to tell you some secrets. And the big secret was to keep it from my sister, who was still enjoying Santa Claus. So I moved over into the arms of my parent to be a part of the fun in telling my sister all about Santa and the sleigh and the reindeers and all this kind of thing. So I took over that responsibility because my mother was there having a lot of trouble with her feet, and Dad was always busy working. So it seemed natural. I did that. But at the same time, there was something in me that lost the belief in the power of magic. But because I had spirit guides, I could talk to them. And so they would tell me that I'd been a good girl through the year and that there was a surprise coming. And I wouldn't know what that surprise was, and I knew it wasn't coming down the chimney. So I just waited patiently to see. And I remember the first time I got a surprise, because an auntie that I hadn't seen in a long time turned up out of the blue carrying a big parcel for me, wrapped up of course, and it went under the tree. And when I opened it, it was a painting set. I was so thrilled because I was into painting then at that age, and probably didn't cost so much, but it was exactly what I wanted. And even later that was repeated when I got my own paint box, which was full of very expensive paints of the time, made by Reeves, a very famous company at the time. And so, I was getting what I wanted, even though I wasn't now believing in Santa. So you see, my parents, while they were continuing to keep my sister happy with the sense of Santa coming down the chimney, and we did have a chimney, by the way, it was feasible, it was doable. And so I was playing along with that game, keeping alive the idea of magic, but at the same time, my spirit guides were keeping me in the mode of God does give you. Spirit guides do give you. And I will say throughout my life that I never, ever was disappointed by my spirit guides. Parents, yes, because they say, we'll do what we can, and we'll get this for you on your birthday. But in those days, after a war and everything else, it wasn't easy to just go out and buy something like you can today. There was no question of throwaway stuff. It was buy it and know it'll last, and you'll wear it for as long as it lasts. And if you want to change it, you could always put a few stitches in and change it somehow. Take out a sleeve, put in a sleeve, a different material to make something look different. Adaptability. And we learned a lot about adaptability. Now, what is talent? I want to bring that into the magic of energy, because when I was very young, spirit guides would say to me, if you want a nice present for Christmas, what you should do is do a nice letter. And so I would sit down with my little sister and we would draw a nice picture of things that she liked, and then we would put it under the mat in the living room, under the Christmas tree, and leave it. And of course, Mum and Dad would take that away in the morning, and they would read it, because whatever she'd put in there with me. And that was fun. I was now part of the secret subterfuge people, going on doing these things. And of course, my sister never knew. And ultimately, when it came to her understanding that Santa was indeed family, she began to realize for herself. She'd say to me, I don't think I believe. And I'd say, why not? You can believe. You can always believe. There's spiritual entities and there's fairies and elves and things. And she'd say, oh, I don't know there. I've never seen any. And I let her decide for herself. But I noticed that she wasn't actually seeing anything at all, whereas I was. I was seeing fairies. I was seeing elves. And one day I actually was looking out the window at some elves through my mother's opera glasses across the field, and I found them by chance, and I was watching them, and they were just like two old men just talking together with their little pointy hats and their little beards and sitting under some leaves. And my sister came along and she wanted to see it. And so I said, well, here I'm holding these. I say, don't jog me because I'll lose it. And of course she gets on and she pulls my hand like that, and I lost where they were. And I spent about half an hour trying to find them till she got bored and couldn't. And I realized that the reason I'd seen them was because I still believed in magic. Okay? When I was older, I was laying under an oak tree and I was resting and escaping my parents' arguments, being honest. So I was a bit miserable. And I was just lying there and I was looking at these gnats that were flying around, because it was about 4 at night, time when the gnats come out, as we call them, bugs. They were flying above me and they always seemed to like me and follow me everywhere. And I used to get really angry with these things. They didn't bite me, but they were just always around my head and everything. And so here I am looking up like this, and suddenly I realize I'm not looking at gnats. I'm looking at minute fairies all flying around my head. And so I realized that I was seeing fairies. And as I decided I was seeing fairies, I realized that fairies could look like insects. And later still in my life, I saw dragonflies at a place called Virginia Waters, where dragonflies live. And yet again, the sun was going down. It was getting ready towards leave to go back home on the coach, Sunday school outing, right? So we're all spiritually aware, because Padre is on the bus and he's talking about, did you have a lovely time? Because God was with us and so on while we're going back. And I piped up, yes, and I saw the fairies. And he looked at me and I said, well, they're dragonflies, but they're really fairies. And he looked at me and said, yes, dear, see, Margaret saw fairies, to the younger ones. But I knew the whole story of what I wanted to tell was never investigated, and I couldn't explain that fairies can morph. They can morph to look just like anything else. So they don't just look like insects. They can actually look like little... I remember walking in my garden when years later I'm an adult, and I'm thinking, where did the kids put those little fairies in the grass? Where did they find those? And I went, and being I'm still picking up kids' stuff in the garden, as you do in the night, and put them in the shed. So I went over to these couple of little fairies that I saw in the grass, and as I got close, they disappeared. And then I realized I've been looking at real fairies. So I believe in magic, but how do you know that you are looking at something that really is the spirit energy of fairies, elves, dwarfs, and so on? And how do you not know that the mouse that ran across the grass in front of you was actually a mouse and not a fairy taking on the form of some animal? You see, fairies take the duty seriously of taking care of Mother Earth. And the gnomes, they take good time in understanding how to take care of the trees. They all have a little job. And if you're living in an area where there's lots of green grass, you might want to go out in the early morning when the dew's up and look to see where there's long grass like this and next to it is short grass like this. And there's a circle of long grass. And then there's your regular grass all around that's normally so high. If you see that tall grass in a ring, that is a fairy ring. What they do is they come into a certain night, the full moon, for example, or a new moon, they come and they dance around the little circle there, and they sing a little chanty song, and they're generating energy to the earth. And the magic that they have is spiritual energy. It's not magic hocus pocus, it's spiritual energy. And so as they're dancing and singing, they're sending out their vibration of spiritual energy across that field. And I've been lucky enough to see the field before, the night before I saw the fairy ring. And then I came out the next morning to see the fairy ring, and as I looked up, all the field had all the daisies up everywhere. They'd all come up. And I thought, oh, the fairies did it. They brought the daisies up, and the clover too. It was wonderful. And I was about 10 then. And as I got older, I didn't see so much of the fairies and so on. And it was kind of disappointing. But by the time I was in my 20s, I met this gentleman who was a photographer who used to snap pictures. Just, he had a feeling and he'd snap a picture at, say, some, I don't know, insects or something, and instead he'd have a picture of a fairy on the film. And he was showing those. He had them as a slide, and he was showing them at one of the expos in England. And I'd gone along because I wanted to see what he'd captured. And I was absolutely amazed because he'd captured what I'd been seeing. And to me, that was proof that I wasn't just listening to spirit, and they were giving me a visual, or that they were spirits that were in my imagination and I just thought it as real as I grew up, because he was showing me what I'd seen. And I went up to him afterwards and we had quite a bit of a chat, and I told him how I'd been seeing them all my life, and he too had. And I asked him how come he was able to capture them on film, and he said, well, one day he was walking in the forest and he heard a little voice talking somewhere, and he stopped and he looked around, and all he heard was take pictures. So he did. He just pointed the camera in the area of where the voice seemed to come from, couldn't see a thing, and when he got the film printed, there was little fairies, lots of them in his film, and that's how he started. And I did quite a lot of chatting with him over time, because we all used to go and do different expos and things. And the last time I talked to him, he was saying that he wasn't well. And I said to him, well, all your pictures that you've got, what are you doing? You're going to put them in a book? And he was saying, I'd love to, but it's colour, it's going to cost £5,000, I only have $500, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't have videos. We didn't have all the things that we have today. And so unfortunately, I don't know if today, whoever, I've forgotten even his name, I'm afraid, but whoever he was, I was so upset that all those pictures would vanish and nobody would get to see them. But maybe now, because we have movies where they can make them on film, maybe we have some people out there who've actually taken pictures of fairies, elves, gnomes, even pixies. They can be tricksy. And you know, show them online to the children so that the children can see that they do exist. There's one man, Dumitran, who is always putting up all his amazing pictures on Facebook, and I am not surprised that he's doing this, showing different dimensions, showing vortices, showing fairies, showing crosses. He's doing a bit of everything, and he's the only one that I've seen doing this on Facebook. So I'm here to say, if you have pictures, even if they were taken a long time ago, bring them up, copy them, put them up on Facebook so the children can see them and believe, and tell them these are not made on a generation of computers. These are real pictures that were taken long before computers even existed. So having said that this world of spiritual entities on this planet is here, they are the guardians of the world. They have been doing this for billions of years. You begin to understand that fairies don't die. They evolve, they transform. They are metaphysical. They can be a gnome and they can become a fairy. They can be a fairy and change to be a pixie. They can be joyful, happy. They can be miserable. They're what we call elementals. And elementals in the spirit world are governed by earth, air, fire, and water, the ways of the earth. So if you see a fairy and they're in, say, a mulberry bush or sitting under a gooseberry bush, or that's English as I saw them, or maybe they're in a bramble where the blackberries grow and the raspberries, they're usually around fruit. And if you think about fruit, if it falls to the ground, it's a seed, and that has to germinate and grow. And that was their job, to make sure that more growth comes out of the plant as it dies. So they keep the energy of earth nourished. They also work with the creatures of the earth, such as moles and worms, and mice and burrowing animals, because they keep them happy and alive and try and keep them free from germs and things, so that their work in living in the soil keeps the soil fresh. We don't think of that. We just think, oh, moles are digging up my garden, or, you know, they're digging up this, they're digging up that, or the mice are eating all my cabbages or something. I'm fed up with them. But yes, they have to survive on food just as we do. And the amount of food they eat isn't that much. So I learned at a young age, don't disturb this life, because they work with the spirits and of the earth, and they help keep this place happy. But look what happened. We swarmed this place with gas from fuels. We swarmed this place with foreign substances like DDT, and killed off many of the animals that help to keep the land safe. Now, when we say animals, you've got to recognize that there are many bugs that feed off the food that we're growing. So, hey, we can't have aphids, or I think it was what they were called, little round balls of things that will caterpillar into a fly, a butterfly or something. Well, those aren't spirits. Those aren't elementals. Those are normal insects. So I don't want you to think that every insect is a spirit entity in the form of a fairy, of some kind dwarf, or whatever you're thinking of. But I do want you to understand that nature has its own way of survival. And it is that the small, tiny bugs are preyed on by the bigger bugs. And then the bigger bugs are preyed on by the birds. And the birds are preyed on by the bigger birds. And the bigger birds are preyed on by the animals. And the animals are preyed on by bigger animals, and so on, until we get to us, who are big meat eaters generally. And look what's happened now. We have mass farming, overfeeding of the animals. There are too many animals reproducing, so we have food sent all over the world, frozen, which sounds good to the countries that need it, but it isn't going there. It's going to the countries that don't need it. And then they're selling it in their stores under sales prices, and we buy that food and we freeze it or do whatever we can, and we hope we don't waste it. But I can tell you, I know there's a lot of waste. For example, if you go to one of the restaurants where it's all sort of deli fresh and cooked fresh, like a Chinese shop or something, you can help yourself to as much food as you want and sit down and gobble it all down and go back for seconds and thirds and really overeat and get fat and fatter and fatter. And you think, wow, I'm getting my money's worth. But what you're not realizing is that all that food was bought for very little money because it's been overproduced and they have to flood the market to get people to buy it. And so suddenly shrimps are very popular because they're everywhere. And then you find out that they've overproduced them in the shrimp farms, okay? And not everybody wants to eat shrimps all of a sudden, so they got to get rid of them. So they sell them at cheap rock bottom price, okay? Sounds good for us, but why isn't this food going to the countries where they have no food? Oh, I talked to someone about that, yes, years ago, and what did they say? Well, it costs a lot of money to package them, then it costs a lot of money to put them onto a boat or a ship or whatever that means they're sending them over, or a plane, or, and today we're shipping stuff everywhere where people pay for it. So lots of countries have got food, but the ones who haven't are the ones who can't pay for the shipping. And then you say to someone, as I was about to say earlier on, well, what are you going to do with all this leftover food? Well, we're going to burn it. We're going to bury it. But hey, there's all these starving people. Why don't you just put it on a plane and fly? Oh, well, who's going to pay the bill? Well, some millionaire could right away. But what are they doing with their money? Hoarding it? Why? Well, they're not really hoarding it. They've got 900 billion people working for them underneath them who are all saying, I want more money, I want more things, I want more this, I want more that. Greed, 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 greed. Where's the magic in any of that? Where's the harm of love and giving, supporting them, coming from? It's not being nurturing, it's not giving them anything. And to me, the nurturing, the harm that we do in just stacking things up and buying them for the sake of buying them, whatever it is, and then wondering why we bought them anyway. And it's overused, or it's stale, or it's gone bad, or it's out of date now, so I have to go buy a new thing, whatever the thing was. Why are we so greedy for more and more and more? After World War II, if I had shoes and I'd outgrown them, Mother took them to the cobbler. The cobbler, if you know what that is a shoe mender, would then mend the shoes, polish them up, make them look like new, and another lady would come along and he would say, okay, you need shoes for your daughter, I've got these, I've renovated them, you can have them for so many shillings. Old money in those days, which might be, say, £1 today. Now, what we got is 99-cent stores, second-hand stores, where the over-collected produce in this country goes there. And I can tell you that I do go there and shop, and so do many, many other people in my town. And we're so grateful that we can get cauliflowers and vegetables fresh, and they're like half the price in the grocery store. Yeah. So if 99-cent store can sell an overproduced cauliflower. There's so many of them because they flourished because of the weather was good for them. Okay, so I went back to the store, having bought a whole big cauliflower, this big one size, for $1. And what did I see? Cauliflowers were as big, but they weren't $1 each. They were $1 a pound. And when I put the cauliflower onto the scale to see how much it weighed, it was 4 pounds. So that meant I was going to pay 4 pounds in weight, so it would be $4, okay, when I went up to pay for it. So here I was feeling, oh wow, I got a whole big cauliflower, and I weighed the one I'd already got at home just to see, and it was 5 pounds. So I'd actually got 5 pounds of weight of cauliflower in the store for $1 in the 99-cent store, and I'd got a good deal. So my question here is, where is the magic in farming and giving to people if you have to set your prices so high that by the chain reaction of getting it from farmer to store, it's become so expensive? Why can't we keep the price lower? Well, it comes back to shipping and marketing and gas and this and that. It's exhausting. We need the magic back in our lives. We need the creative, artistic, fantasy illusion. Now, okay, there's lots of people making movies right now, space movies, magic movies, fairy musical music, songs about fairies and things. So the creative side of us is functioning. But why isn't it integrating with the common or garden everyday intellect that says, I have to pay these high prices, I can't afford this, nothing's ever going to happen, I don't believe in magic? Well, we go back to what I was talking about in the beginning. If we don't embellish the understanding of the spirit world in this planet, on this planet, around this planet, if we don't embellish to a child's imagination the wonder and awe of creative self that can produce something so artistic that it looks like magic. When I was a child, I would sit down with my colouring pens and colour a doily. You can't even buy a paper doily today unless you hunt high and low online. When I coloured those doilies, I already knew I was creating a pattern that was a mandala. Oh, they didn't have that word then. It was a pattern for healing. And I would take that coloured doily and hang it on the wall. And then after a while I'd looked at it, I would then go into my mother and say, I want you to have this under your pillow. And she'd say, oh, that's nice, you're giving me a present. And I'd just say yes, because I didn't know what else to say. But I knew that all those colours on that doily would help her sleep, because she was an insomniac because of the bombs every night while she was trying to sleep. They would be falling and you wouldn't know if it's your last day on earth. And I, as a young child, also grew up with that and knew that I could die any minute. But I wasn't aware of the ending of life, in that I would not be able to do stuff, I would not be able to grow up because I was sheltered. So I was just told, don't worry about the bombs. They won't fall on us, they'll fall at somewhere else. And I would say, well, they fall somewhere else, where will they be safe? Mum would say, oh, probably. And that was enough, because I was only 3 and I wanted to accept that. But I still turned time and time again to the magic of my stones, the magic of the gardens around me, the magic of the energies of the trees as I looked at them, because I could see their auras, and I still can, of course, today. So if you're out in the country and you see a nice big tree that you admire, move away from it, stand back far enough that you can have a long shot view of it, and just let your eyes relax like this and gaze, and you will start to see. So let's say my head's the tree, top of the tree that you physically see, you will see the aura is all around the tree, like this. And it's white, and it has flecks of blue and green and lavender in it, if you can see colour. Now, when I say that, you can also see your aura. Sometimes I see white flashes on my side. Sometimes I'll see yellow or green or blue, depending on how I'm thinking and what I'm doing. And when I've got spirit around, I definitely have lavender and purples and things like gold and oranges and, more ascended colours. That, to me, is magic. But if I don't have a belief in the power of my spirit to show myself my colours, I'm never going to see them. If I don't have that foundation stone of I believe in magic from Santa Claus and from the Tooth Fairy and from my actually seeing the entities when I was a child out in the forests and out in the parks and by the lakes and things, then I wouldn't have remained aware of the magic of life. I remember another example where I had a dandelion and you have to blow it to he loves me not, he loves me. Not that I had a boyfriend or anything at the grand age of 8 or 9, but there were a lot of dandelions that year, and they all went to seed. And so when the wind blew, they were blowing like a sheet of these little pollen, what do you call them, seedlings, which are like a little round thing with a little feather on the top, and they would just go with the wind. And I was watching that, and as I watched it, I saw all the rainbow colours around them. They were flowing in the wind in a rainbow load of colours. And as I looked at them, I thought, that's the energy. That's their spirit. They're alive. But we don't think of a seed as something alive, especially when you get a packet of seeds, like from tomato seeds or cabbage seeds. You don't think this is alive. But once you put it in the ground, you put a bit of water on it, it wakes up. It comes alive. So there in that seed is the magic of life. And we need to realize that we were once an ova in our mother's body, a dormant seed just there in vibrant energy, waiting for her to gestate it, pass it out into her womb, and if it's meant to be, to have a baby. You were a seed of energy in your mother's womb. Now, I want you to think of yourself. How many cells do you have in your body? Well, you might have a guess at trillions. You'll probably be nearly right. But the bottom line is all those seeds are different. They're different cells in different parts of the body. So yes, cells are seeds. And they die and leave a part of themselves in the nucleus, and then they grow a new cell. It replaces the one that's died. So if you look at me now that I'm 79, and every 7 years we grow completely new cells in our body. So if I think back to when I was a newborn baby, I want you to understand right now the magic of the evolution of each one of us is we have regrown cells throughout our body every 7 years. So I've had 7, nearly 8 cycles of growing new cells throughout my body. So I am not the ova that was originally born through my mother into a baby. I'm not that person. The only thing that is still in that person is my spirit. And my spirit is the seed. It is the energy of my soul. And my soul is what lives forever, just the same as the fairies who live on this planet live forever. Now, coming back to the elemental state of a fairy, dwarf, elf, or whatever it is, their energy is able to be unstable enough to be able to change their appearance. So, when I saw those gnomes all those years ago looking through binoculars, do you think they knew I was looking at them? I do, because it seemed like they were just two guys sitting together, reminiscing, one smoking a pipe, in the way that I'd seen it in a book somewhere. Only they weren't just in a book standing there with a pipe. They were animated, they were moving. And I was only looking at one gnome to start off with, and then into that one area where that one was sitting under a tree came the other one who was talking to him, standing talking for quite some time before my sister turned up and pulled my arm. So I wasn't imagining, I was seeing a real live conversation between two gnomes. You can't doubt that. It's as real as if you're seeing two people who've just come out of church talking about the weather and having a nice time and saying, how have you been and what you're up to. That's how it felt to me. They were doing catch up. They were talking about whatever they've been doing, and they were as normal to them as we are normal to us in having a conversation. So I'm pointing this out because I want you to understand that the magic of the oneness is in everything. It's in the tree, as I mentioned, you see the aura. It's in every plant. There's a book that I published for my dad, and I want to share it with you because, in my opinion, that is a book that every child should be given at Easter or at Christmas. My dad studied with me and was a medium himself, and there's always a train going back through psychics, back through history. And because he went through the war and post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of it was suppressed, but his ayah, who was a nanny who was looking after him when he was born in India, told him when he was about 3 that he had a ring of red spots around his body, and she told him, you are a psychic and you will know the creatures of the earth and you will know the spiritual essence of God. And he would swear up and down that the 5 times he was wounded, always the spirit of oneness was with him. He knew he was going to be hit before he was hit, and one time he came through and woke up and he was hit in the head, and they were giving him the last rites. And into that tent came a man who said, stop that, I'm a brain surgeon, let me see, and saved my father's brain and his life. So, is that magic? I think so. It's the magic of the oneness where whatever we need to see and to feel and to have done and to get help is needed, and it is not our time to leave this planet because we're still learning about it. There is always somebody who turns up to save things. Now I'm going to depart from the good side for a minute and talk about the bad side. A couple of years ago, before my husband died, probably when he had about 6 months more to live, so somewhere early 2019, my husband calls me out and he says, come quickly, we need you to do your healing. So you're running out, what is it? And there's this little rabbit lying on its side, labouring for breath. And I said, well, this is badly hurt. And he said, no, it looks all right. You probably just put your hand on. Well, I've turned it over from the side it was on, and the whole of its other side was hanging out. His intestines were hanging out. And I said to my husband, you have to kill it. He said, I can't kill it. You kill it. And I said, I can't kill it. So we're both there wondering what to do. And I said, go get a hammer or something. We have to hit it over the head or something. And I was trying to psych myself up to be that destructive. And as I'm standing there looking while my husband's gone, my spirit guide said, take your finger, your healing energy, and put it on his heart. So it was a boy rabbit. So I went down and I did just that. And I put my finger on his heart. And then the energy flowed from my finger into his heart, and there was this little shudder of death shudder, and then I saw this little bit of smoke come out of his body, which is his spirit, and it kind of did a little flicker, and he was gone back to the oneness. And the baby, it was a baby, it wasn't a fully grown rabbit. It was about probably 5 months old, about yay big, because they get bigger. I felt so happy that I was able to help him, this little animal, leave its body and not suffer. So that was a miracle, wasn't it? But that was magic too, because magic is explainable. Now, let's move forward into, say, a card person. And there was a young man, Oriental young man, I don't remember his name, but it was something like Shay or something, who came on, and he was doing all this with cards, and his hands never touched anything, and he could, when he did, he was like this and putting his sleeves up. And if you found him online, do watch him over and over again, because you cannot catch him doing anything with those cards. And yet those cards changed and changed. One would say, is there a chemical in the cards that when he puts his hands over with electromagnetic energy from his aura, it changed them? I was thinking that. But what if he is a real magician? What if his energy really could change those cards? Would you believe it if you saw that and he was able to tell you it is real magic? Or would you be going, no, it can't be? You see, going back to my story of Santa Claus and fairy, tooth fairy and things like that, we have to realize that we believed and then our story was blown out of the water. We don't believe. So how do we know someone isn't conning us from now on? How do we know this great magician who's showing us such wonderful magic is actually conning us? We can't see it. We want to know what they're doing with these, how are they doing this? How is it done? There's another person who levitates off the, and everyone's looking for a wire. Maybe he's being pulled up under his armpits by a wire from the ceiling or roof of a building. There's no wire. How is he going up off the ground? We don't know. We weren't supposed to know, because whatever he's doing, that's his job, and he's an entertainer. But it's still to our heart and mind, because we cannot understand how it is done. It's magic. We like to be amazed. We like to be surprised. We like to have everything go on around us like a big present every day of our life. Well, of course, we don't really see that. Not everyone's turning up with a present for us that we really needed or wanted. Not everyone's getting who we are and what we like, so they buy the wrong thing anyway, and it's not something we want, like I said at Christmas. So what is magic to us? Over the years, with so many psychic experiences that I've had, I learned to understand that magic is in the ethers. Magic is in the energy of our body. Magic is in how we touch, how we integrate ourselves with other people. I could be sitting right beside someone and not touch them, but my aura is going into their aura, and I know that while I'm sitting next to them, I'm healing their liver, and I haven't even put my hands on them. And I don't even know that person. So I can't turn to them and say, excuse me, but you have a bad liver and I'm sitting here healing you. So I didn't say anything. This is years ago. But it just so happened that my spirit guides wanted me to know that the person I was sitting next to me was actually a friend of my mother's. And lo and behold, we go back to wherever it was, church or whatever, and my mum is talking to this person that I've been sitting there looking at her and sending energy. And I'm only 9, 10 years old. So my mum says, oh, this is Auntie somebody. Everybody was Auntie somebody. And I looked at her and I said, oh, are you better? And she looked at me and said, yes. How did you know? And I just said, oh, spirits did it, you're better. And ran off to play. What else was I going to say and do? Okay, Mum said later, what did you say to that woman? She was crying. I said, I don't know. I didn't remember, but I did. But I couldn't explain that my aura went to her aura because I was learning this from Spirit and the Oneness. And today, I don't even think twice about it when I'm healing someone. Okay? In fact, if you're listening to this and you are feeling me, you're not just feeling me, you're feeling my spirit guides and my connection to the Oneness. And if you're feeling me that way and you're looking into my eyes and you're connecting with me, if you have something that's wrong with you, you may well be getting healing remotely from me via the Oneness, via the spirit energy, via your spirit guides. And hey, don't say Margaret healed me, say the Oneness healed me, because I'm just a catalyst. Just the same as when I saw those two gnomes. They were there for me to know they existed and they were real. And once I understood they are the gardeners of the earth, I didn't see them again for many, many years. And when I did see them again, it was to remind me to not think like an adult, but to think like a child. Because it is the child in us that trusts. It's the child in us that believes in what we are and what we can do. And it is the child in us that is the artist, the creative part of ourselves that says, I have an idea. I have a sense of how to do. And I believe in myself to at least try. And in the trying, here's the magic. Because it just comes together just right. Every little bitty thing I do towards it works. And I created something that for me was a time of magic, where I was in peace doing it, where I was enjoying doing it, and where I felt I was connected to the Oneness and all that is. So magic exists. It exists in each one of us all the time. But if we're in judgment, if we're worried about money, if we've got 49 kids, as it were, though there's only 2, but it feels like 49, I know that day, we are so drowned out by so much noise and so many things going on and so many problems, you just wish you were dead. Yeah, my mother did that a lot. I caught it, I took it on, and I wished me dead, and I was dead. Okay, only to find out I didn't really want to be dead. I just needed to understand the lesson of death in order to rebirth myself in the way that I promised to come and be on this planet. So while I was in the death mode, before they gave me the panels and injections and brought me back, I was talking to my spirit guides. And they were saying, well, you haven't begun your work yet. I say, don't tell me that. I'm 34 and 5, whatever it was, and I can't do anymore. I feel like I'm 1,000 trillion pieces. I'm split up into so many different things. And I can't deal with it. I can't handle it. And they said, this is the beginning of your knowing. This is the beginning of your returning, knowing who you are and what you can do. And there was more, but it rang a bell. I didn't know who I was. I'd been this strange kid doing strange things all my life, and nobody else could do what I could do. And so everybody says either I'm daft and ridiculous and something not, or I'm a miracle worker, or I've got magic in my hands. Nobody knew me for me. My work, my skills, my talents were the anomaly. And if I tried to explain it to anyone, they were in awe or just, you got vivid imagination, as my mother said, all the time. I wasn't accepted. And I knew that as long as I was here on this planet, I would not be accepted. And I went through that whole Jesus bit, just like everyone does, and I was given my past life in that time, which you can read in my book, My Journey into the Oneness. It took a lot of courage to write the truth in that book. There were lots of things that I knew if I shared, people would judge me and condemn me. I hope you don't, and I hope you'll read it, My Journey into the Oneness. It's a yellow book with a picture of an angel and a woman meditating there. So that hopefully will invite you to want to read it. But the bottom line is, no, My Journey into the Oneness. Sorry, that was me on a bridge. I've got so many books, I get confused. The Way to Oneness, the journey of anyone's life, is in, what's it called? I'm trying to remember now because I've got so many books. I've got the dark side, that's how we're negative and in our own way. And then I have the light side of the oneness, that's it, the light side of the oneness. Because believe it or not, the dark side is part of the oneness. So when you're a child and you're at Christmas and you got the present you didn't want, it's the dark side of you that says, I didn't want this, I wanted that. Okay? And it seems like you're ungrateful, but what you're actually doing is telling yourself, patience, trusting in the way of the oneness, that what you've been given is something you will need later, even though you don't know it right now. Because a lot of things come unexpectedly through people on this planet who feel inspired to go buy you that thing, whatever it is, that you don't want, which lays on the table maybe for weeks or months until suddenly one day you have a need for it. And it's, oh my goodness, thank God I've got it. That's a magic. That's the magic of how we exchange things and receive things that we haven't yet realized we're going to need. And when I look back through my life, including my death scenario, if I hadn't have had that, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I've done today. I wouldn't be able to share all the knowledge and wisdom that Spirit have given me for people to understand and learn by. And I will say that my journey has been very up and down, very yo-yo, good and bad, until I turned into my 60s. There were a lot of things I had to deal with that were still things I needed to evolve through, like family, the death of my mum, the death of my dad, the changes that it brings when you lose a husband. These things all give us a different point of view. Losing someone is very final. And right now, with the dreaded allergy disease that everybody's having inoculations about, we are finding so many of our friends, family members and loved ones have gone. But in the passing, it's left us an awakening, a sense of who are we without that person? And what do I need to do that I could do myself that I've always allowed someone else to do for me? So in a way, the magic of loss is to bring us an awakening of discovery of more of self. The magic of being alone is to find who you are within you, and through that to connect to your spirit and then your soul. To know your divine essence lives forever, just like the fairies, and that you will incarnate and reincarnate. You will incarnate and reincarnate. What does that mean? Well, you will go into the spirit world and be who you are there, and then you'll come back here and you'll have a program and you'll have a journey and you'll do whatever you want, and then when it's a time and you've done whatever you want to do here, you'll leave and you'll incarnate again on earth. No, in the spirit world. Okay, I've flipped that around because I want you to understand that when we leave the spirit world, we leave a whole bunch of friends that we've had in different lives here on earth. We're still friendly with them up there, only we know them as our soul, our being. We are united. There is no issue. Everything is as it is in the now. That's hard for us to understand when we're incarnating on this planet as a new person, a new personality, and we've got dynamics encoded from our soul that we're going to bring from past lives, and we've got stuff from our ancestors in our DNA that we've deliberately chosen those people to be our ancestors so that we can arrive at a certain given time and do what we're going to do to bring awareness, the magic of who we are, into play here on this planet, so that people can grow and evolve towards being more spiritual and more aware of the oneness. So what is the oneness? It's the miracle of life. It's the energy of all that is. It's the miracle that keeps the cosmos as it is, growing and evolving all the time. Every one of us thinks about, is there life on another planet? Well, of course, there's going to be 1,001 trillion ways that we could manifest ourselves as spirit entities, because we live forever. We don't die. We only die here on this planet. So why not go to another planet and have a life there and die there? But why would you mix that planet with this planet, which is like chalk and cheese? So in the same way, why would a fairy want to incarnate again and again as a fairy when they've got the ability to transform and change? So an elf can become a goblin can become a fairy. So yes, they have evolution on Earth in the way that they want to do it. And that is the magic of their energy and of their spirit and of their collective soul, because they are a collection of united fragments that join together and are a soul group. And their focus to maintain each of the countries that they're in, to help those countries evolve and provide whatever they need to provide for us humans and animals that live on it. But we've destroyed it, haven't we? They've worked so hard, they're exhausted, trying to keep this place a happy one. So enter that virus, and here we are learning to appreciate ourselves, because we're tied down, locked to what we must do, to spend time looking at our creative, artistic talents, looking at our history, our beliefs, our issues, our anger, our fear, our pain, our guilt versus our joy, our pleasure, our love, our exploration in the divine and real world that we live in. This is a magical place. It's time we all started to realize that we are magical, living in a magical place. That when we ask the oneness for something, we should ask it in the right way. If you need a new dining table, something I needed, and new chairs, but you haven't got any money, a situation that I was in, I simply said to Spirit, I would love a new table and chairs, please. That was all. No praying, no, and it's got to cost this, and I can't afford that. It was just simple. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I suddenly got a message from my spirit guides, go to the Goodwill store. So I did. And there was this table, scratched a bit, but just what I needed. And because it was so big, they didn't really want it. So I went up and I said, how much is the table? And she said, oh, it's $20, but we got a sale, you can have it for 10. It was a big table. So I said, yes, please. So I paid the 10. I have a card, I could get it in, so we put it in there, and I drove home, and a neighbour helped me get it in the house. But I had the old chairs, and I now needed new chairs. Now, while I had been waiting for that table to be put in my car, I'd been wandering around, and I'd found another table with some chairs. But it was all stacked up against the wall, and I couldn't really see it. But I knew the chairs would fit my table, I just bought. So I went back up to the woman and I said, could I just buy the chairs and not the whole table? Because that table was even more scratched and very bad. Oh no, it's $175 for the whole set. The whole set has to go. Well, I'm not going to buy another table or nor spend that amount of money. So I walked away. About 10 days later, Spirit told me, go back to the Goodwill store and ask for the chairs. So I went back. I didn't even think they'd still be there, being honestly. And sure enough, the table and chairs was there, and on it was a sticker that said $1. So I went back up to the counter, the same woman I'd seen before, and I said, those chairs are there, can I buy them for $1? And she said, absolutely. So I gave her $1 there and then. Then she said, so now you've got the table and 6 chairs. I said, well, can I donate the table back to you? She said, yes, if you want to. So I donated the table back, left the table with them, took the chairs home, did some work on them with linseed oil and dye, and took out the scratches. And today I am so happy that my dining suite is in the kitchen and looks like brand new after I'd fixed it up. The joy of fixing it up, the joy of getting it. Every day I walk by my table and chairs and I go, oh, thank you, Oneness. That was a present. That's the magic of life. When you ask and you trust and you believe that your first asking is the only one you need to do, and that given patience, time, and listening to your instinct to follow up when you get the go-ahead, you're going to find what you need, and at the cost that you can afford to pay. Time and time again that's happened in my life. And I will never stop asking. I'm not greedy. I only ask for what I need. And Spirit guides give me what I need, when I need it, at the right time. Now here's an example where I asked to have in this country my own school, a building. And for many years my husband and I would say, well, that would make a nice school, that would make, but we never had the money, we could never afford it, and so it didn't happen. And then finally, out of the blue, a neighbor that I know said, go and meet someone who was a Chinese lady who's an acupuncturist, and go to see her. And while I'm there, my spirit guides had said, take my crystal acupuncture kit for her, because she's an acupuncturist, so I did. And she comes in and she sees that, we're waiting in her waiting area, sits down and says, I take you Japan. No, I said, I'm already in Japan. I take you China. Okay, maybe one day, but I'm here to find out if you've got a room I could rent. Oh, I have room, she said. So she took me upstairs to not a room, but a suite. And immediately said it was in a derelict state, stored all her stuff up there, dusty, cobwebs, spiders, walls not finished. And so I said, well, I could turn this into a centre up here. My dream would come true. How about that? Would you allow us to do that? She said yes. We removed all her stuff for her. We renovated it. Took us several months. So I had money from Japan, so I could afford to do it. And lovely day comes. We opened, and we had a few people turn up, and we celebrated that. And then we marketed it, and marketed it, and marketed it. And people didn't come. Well, partly because there's no elevator, that didn't help, and partly because I found out nobody liked that building, because it used to be a courthouse years ago, and there was an emanation of negativity about it, which I'd cleared, but people didn't know that, because downstairs, underneath us, was a lot of negativity from those who were coming for Alcoholic Anonymous kind of place where they could talk about their issues and so on. So I was finding this, and I'd put my sign out, and I'd come downstairs to find someone had destroyed my sign. And what happened? Why would someone destroy my sign and scribble on it and spray paint on it and all these things? Anyway, I survived there with that place for a year or two, can't remember how long exactly. And the very last thing I did there was to say goodbye to my husband when we had our memorial service there. And soon after that, the lady wanted her property back. So I had to get rid of all the furniture and everything there and close it down. And I sat there musing in this building, waiting for the last person to come. And I said to Spirit, why did you give me this center? Because it never worked. And they said very simply, because you asked for it over and over again. So, okay. So now you've learned you don't need a center. Okay. So I walked away. Soon after that, I learned about Zoom online, and now today I'm teaching online. Of course, I'm still doing my shows, and I'm doing talks with Katie Kamara, and my life has changed, and now I realize I don't need 4 walls for a center. I need a university online, and I had that dream. I've had it my whole life, and now I'm working towards that end. I've been putting out and sending out emails saying, If you're a teacher, we're interested in having you on Sumaris Education Centre or Universal Christchurch, or maybe even Easy Peasy Solutions for one-off talk. We want to build a place where people can come, study all the metaphysical things, qualify, get certificates and later diplomas, and from there help them to go into uni and get their PhD. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to believe in magic? Do you want to believe in the power of yourself to manifest with the help of your spirit guides whatever your dreams are? Do you even have dreams? Have you had one that you've put on the back burner and said, there's no magic in this, I can't make it work? Are you ready to dust it down? Take it down? Sometimes we carry dreams for years. I know my one was. Okay? And now, today, I've learned with many lessons along the pathway that if you ask and you believe in the asking and you wait patiently, what you need will come in exactly the way you need it at the time you're standing there going, I need it. It comes. Because it's just a wholeness, a unity of oneness, of as below as above so below. When everything comes together, and in that moment, you know it, there is joy in your heart. Your mind wants to sing the songs of praise of all that is, because it's just so easy and so right and so fulfilling in that moment. And that is the magic of life. Absolute magic. So on that note, I want to say thank you once again for listening. And if you want to have a little bit more magic, I am teaching again on Sunday at 2 p.m. Arizona time, which is Pacific time right now, and 3 hours later on the East Coast. And I'm teaching this Sunday, 2 o'clock my time, to know the difference between ascended masters, spiritual guides, lost souls, earthbounds. Yes, you need to know the gamut of all the spirits that you're likely to be talking to once you allow yourself to embrace your spirit. Your psychic ability will come up and it'll be manifesting. So I'm teaching every other Sunday, free, an intro class on what the psychic ability is about, in preparation for when I will be teaching how to actually become a psychic and do readings. And from readings, if you stick with me and go through 3 to 5 levels of study, can end up being a oneness counselor, a medium, and much more. So we'll have to see where things go from now, because I'm just at starting point of introducing the psychic ability to people online who want to come, and they're starting to hear about it. So if you'd like to join me this coming Sunday, go to my page on Facebook, Margaret Rogers Van Coops, and see the link there to go to easypeasysolutions.org, where you can sign in saying that you want to join me, and I will be able to let you into the Zoom room. I've put the number there as well. I've given it out. So you want to join me, please do. And also look up Dr. Katie Kamara and myself. We have a show Saturday. You might join us then. Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks. And we are talking about the manifestations of how we find serendipity, how we find things coming together in a way that unify for us and give us an understanding of purpose and direction that seems to be in some way a dream coming true. We're getting a fulfillment in the work that we're doing and so on. We're going to be talking about the positive side of serendipity and that can cover a whole bunch of things. So if you're wanting to listen to our free show, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Sorry, rephrase. 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, go to Facebook on my page or Katie Kamara's page and sign up on Easy Peasy Solutions. Wherever you go, you're going to find the links. Join us and ask us questions, because this is a live show. Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks is a live show, so you can call in and ask your questions. You can be on video if you want, or you can just be over the phone, however you want to do it, and we will answer your questions. And you might want to expand on topics that we're talking about, so feedback is always good. So we love to hear from anyone who wants to call in and join us. So again, go to my Facebook page or Katie Kamara's page and you'll find the links there. So be well, and I'm sure she'll put the links under this video when she shares it. So be well, take care, and recognize every day there's magic in your life.